welcome to another episode of the CADimensions Additive Manufacturing Group podcast. I'm Kevin Keefe, I'm the marketing manager at CADimensions, here with Ken Postal, Adam Fosnut. They are our additive manufacturing technical solutions specialists, and I wanted to talk to you guys because you look a little road weary, worn, tired.
That's one way to put it.
You've just come back from spending the past few days at the AMUG show. Wonder if you guys can fill us in for everybody who's watching what AMUG is and what it's all about.
Sure. AMUG is the Additive Manufacturing Users Group conference, and so it's an event every single year where you get pretty much all the major 3D printing manufacturers and their users all get together and talk about 3D printing, what the future of 3D printing looks like, current issues that people are having, successes that people are having, and I'm very tired. It was a long week.
Yeah, so, New York to Chicago is a lot of traveling. And
flight wasn't terrible.
Well, plus you're probably walking a lot when you go to those shows.
Yeah.
It's like what, from 7 in the morning till 10 at night every night.
Every single day.
Yeah, so you're just going for 4 days straight.
Yeah, it was a lot, but it was a lot of fun. Learned a lot, met a lot of different
You've been to AMUG a couple of times before that.
This is my second time there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any big improvements this year over last year, or?
It was a lot of the same. Definitely more attendees, more vendors,
event.
and more talks. So just more of everything.
Yeah.
So it was it was a good time.
Good. No, it's growing. It's probably that event's probably going to grow in reflection of all the industry. Growing,
Yeah,
so.
I would assume a lot of same faces, a lot of new products. It's
Yes.
basically the theme I would assume it would follow.
Nice. So Adam, I wonder if you can give us some of the things that you took away from AMUG that were particularly of interest to you.
Sure. Well, I have two main ideas around AMUG. The first one kind of revolved around Todd Grimm's talk, and he identified kind of 4 key trends in the 3D printing world.
So for anybody who doesn't know, Todd Grimm is...
Yeah, Todd Grimm is an industry analyst, so he's been working in additive manufacturing for a very long time, and gives a talk every year at AMUG about the trends and significant events that he sees within the industry and the events. Cool. He also emceed most of the event and most of the keynotes, so he's generally well-known and respected
evangelist
person. Yeah.
Sure, nice.
So he identified 4 key trends. They were, if I'm not revealing them too fast or anything, software being the first one.
Hold on, way too fast.
Way too fast. Let's slow it down here. The first trend would be software. The second, automation, innovation, and then the last one being industrial, which I know Ken has some strong opinions about.
Okay.
Industrial was probably the most thought-provoking, but starting at the top, software. He kind of hinted at more and more companies are moving into both a software and hardware integrated platform, and that the most successful companies are doing both, and you can't really rely on another business to develop software for your hardware or vice versa.
So is it safe to say that too many end users were getting frustrated by getting, a hardware product to learn and then a software product to learn, and it was just a bad customer experience? So now the big players in the market are saying, all right, let's make a more holistic
I think it's mostly a compatibility issue.
Okay.
Like when I'm printing on printers at home, the person who makes my processing software is different from whoever made the printer. So there's compatibility issues, there's fine-tuning you have to do, and so people are looking for more of a one-stop shop or an end-to-end solution out of these products. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah, definitely on the support side too, because like you mentioned with having a different manufacturer, the printer and the software. Okay, well, if I'm unexperienced and I don't know, I may think it's the printer. Well, actually, it's from the software. So I go to the printer people, and they're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. What's the problem? So it's kind of back and forth, where if it's more single stream, one company lets them kind of diagnose a little better.
Interesting. Allows the manufacturer to be a little bit more vertically integrated too, more control over their process. And they're trying to help you troubleshoot. Why isn't my spool draining completely well? All right, is this a hardware issue? Is it a software issue? And you can probably triage those things a little bit easier.
Right.
Makes sense.
So as a whole, I think that creates a better user experience, like you mentioned, and I think it's something that people are starting to demand more.
The industry's grown up, and that's definitely going to be an evolution of the maturity of that.
There's definitely a demand for the softwares to do more for you.
What does that mean?
So some softwares kind of give you complete control of everything, and some prefer to give you a couple options and then do a lot of the thinking in the background. So for
So like a level of customization?
Yeah, so for less experienced users, you can still have success and not need to know how to adjust every single parameter on the machine. So being able to, quote unquote, plug and play, where it's that simple, just hit a button and it works, well, make it as easy as possible for someone to get the end result they want.
So now you've got to have really, if you're going to own that software solution end of it too, you've got to have a situation for novice people all the way up to experts, and you can't make it too challenging for the new people, but you also can't make it not customizable enough for the people who really know what they're doing and really want to take control of that. That's a whole different world of problems that those companies have to try to deal with now.
Yeah.
I think it's hard to strike that balance between making a software that is great for brand new users and a software that's great for very
Every
advanced
software.
users.
Every
Yeah, I'm
software,
sure it is
Yeah.
every software, but especially in the 3D printing world, it's a problem. I know we were in our One Materials panel that I think you're talking about later. They mentioned that there are over 250 parameters that you can set in their processing software that most people are familiar with in the printing world, but that's just a lot to go through if you're brand new to using the equipment.
Yeah.
So it can be overwhelming.
Makes sense.
Anyway, automation. They mostly looked at that from like a whole process flow perspective, which had a lot to do with post-processing of parts. In a lot of ways, people like to think that the 3D print is done when the print is done and it comes out of the machine, but as people get more experience with it, they realize, there's support removal. You might need to drill or hone any specific surfaces.
Tumbling,
You might
finishing.
need to surface finish it. You might need to paint it. There's a lot that people do where the print coming out of the printer is really the starting line, not the finish line. And a lot of companies are moving to add automation to those processes.
Okay. What does that look like, automation? Because I know that we have here, we have some wash tanks. I know you guys have tools. So aside from more dissolvable support materials, what other ways do they have that you can automate that process?
Sure. Some companies are looking to automate just the support removal. Some are looking to automate just the surface finish or the color, for example, and others are looking to do all of them.
Okay.
And so it really depends on what technology you're working with and what materials you're most often working with. So there are some specifics you can get into. But as a whole, just automating it more than pull off the supports by hand, and automating it more than pull off supports and then put it in a bucket for 8 hours. They're trying to speed up the process and make it more automated and more network connected so you can get data around how parts move after they get out of the printer.
Get a better idea of what your actual turnaround time is to get the finished part and not off the printer part.
Right.
Yeah.
It's time to part that's
Yeah.
most important.
A lot of these trends fall around a larger theme of mass production or larger production.
And was that a bigger concern from your perspective for people who are, using 3D printing specifically to make and use parts?
That's one of the main reasons they're not.
So that's more of a hindrance right now on why they
Yes.
can't. So this is going to be born out of really the drive to try to get more people to adopt that process.
Yes, a lot of the conversation, regardless of what session or talk I was in,
Anything.
highly revolved around how can we use 3D printing for production, aka end use parts? What are the issues around it, and when is it going to be ready for actual production?
Yeah.
I'm not sure I got a clear answer from any person throughout the whole conference.
There's no.
But there's
silver bullet.
there's a lot of excitement around it, and there's a lot of players all trying to get to that point as quickly as they can.
Cool. Sounds like some neat stuff. So Todd Grimm talked about a few trends, talked about software, talked about how people are automating the process after the print is finished. What other cool things did you guys take away from it?
His next trend was innovation, and essentially that boils down to a lot of companies are making new printing processes.
Yeah. We've talked about some of this stuff too. Yeah.
We have. And then Ken doesn't think there are that many processes being created.
No.
I look at it more in the sense of the whole history of 3D printing. We've had essentially 3 or 4 core technologies, and then just over the last year, we've seen just
explosion.
tens, if not hundreds, of more methods being created, which I think is exciting. Anyway.
Wait, what did you say originally? I forgot what you just said. With the what did you think it was
What's
that
in the mug,
I
Ken?
said? Yeah.
Tell us your thoughts on innovation.
Well, the innovation, the reason I didn't really think it was a trend because I thought it's always kind of been happening. It's not something that's new this year.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the technologies that were pushed forward in printing are now gone because we realized they were bad.
Yeah. I guess
I just don't, like, he said that and I was like, okay, yeah, but that's something that's kind of always been around. I don't really associate innovation with 2019. It's not something that I think, oh, this year's the year of innovation.
But you know what?
Yeah.
This year could be a year that you do see more high water marks or watershed moments for some of these different technologies. I know that Stratasys is talking about some new machines that they have coming out and some different things that are be surprising people later this year.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of that we can talk about, so I'll use generalities at the
They
moment.
surprise people at the conference.
There you go. So you guys won't make surprise. But I mean, I've even heard, people in metal 3D printing. We have a customer that works with us, Vader Systems, that has a process for printing metal using like magnets and stuff like that. It's
Magnetojet, yeah.
Kevin, did you hear about Vader Systems? They sold.
No, I didn't.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's disappointing. Yeah, sorry. They sold to, I think it was Kodak.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they sold to Kodak, which makes sense.
But I thought it was cool technology.
Yeah.
The way that they used it, and that they were, they were a company in Buffalo.
It does
which is
count
cool.
as a new 3D printing method,
There you go.
and it's close by, so that
Innovative.
is a good point.
Yeah.
Innovative. Sometimes innovation is used as maybe too much of a buzzword.
Yeah.
But I might have to disagree with Ken here because, from my perspective, we've been stuck with, for most purposes, FDM, SLA, SLS, and PolyJet for like the last 2 decades. And now we have DLP and LCD and a lot of really exciting improvements upon all of those same 4 core technologies, where I think it's fair to say that innovation is a trend.
So Adam sees enough. Adam sees enough on the 2019 docket of things that are still yet to be unveiled that make him excited about this innovative stuff that'll be released this year.
Yes, and I'm not usually the
And
optimist.
Ken's not excited.
So this should mean a lot coming from me. I tend to be a pessimist, but regardless. Anyway, the last trend is industrial, which was almost an anti-trend from
Industrialization or
just industrial.
Okay.
But
Or just the word.
Ken has some opinions on this, so I'm going to let him kind of explain
Wanna just
the
go into
last
it?
trend.
Okay, so Todd Grimm's 4th trend, I guess you could call it wasn't really even a trend. It was more of a criticizing the industry as a whole. He said we overuse the word industrial.
okay.
So I guess before I go into his explanation, I wanted to ask you, Kevin, is 3D printing industrial?
I mean, I see it as being industrial because we talk about industrial scale applications for 3D printing from the marketing perspective, because I think that's from my angle, that is a
blames
lot
of this on you on the marketing side.
that is a lot of the business justification for 3D printing, where it makes a lot of sense. It's an industrial application. So in my head, I feel like just because of the conversations here with people, I do feel like it has industrial applications. I don't know about overuse, though. Was that your question? Is it overused?
Overused.
Is the term overused?
So
Can I just...
Can I jump in really quick? It's like military grade. It means absolutely nothing.
kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
So
high quality... Yeah.
So when he's comparing, when he thinks of the word industrial, he's thinking like CNC equipment, stamping presses, things that are like
Working in metal.
not working in metal necessarily, but working for like 50 years and still going.
Okay.
It's like things that you just leave in the corner
It's
and it
more
just
like durability than anything
Yeah.
else.
durability, reliability, and repeatability.
Okay.
So he argues, and I think a part of it with the marketing side is not necessarily advertising that we're like perfect, robust machines, but that's the target audience is the industry, not industrial necessarily. But I kind of agree with him. I kind of agree that although we have very reliable systems and our systems, we have data from our customers that are doing 10 years with a single machine. Is that industrial?
See, I think you're going to split hairs on this because a brake press the size of this room made of, cold rolled steel that has been on somebody's floor for 80 years and still does the same job because that's all you've ever asked it to do for 80
It goes
years.
up and down.
Is, going to be really reliable and durable and no problem. And is the housing for the 3D printer plastic and maybe looks like it's not the same scale as the brake press? possibly, but I still think that there's absolutely a lot of durability in these machines. I think that the problem is more not necessarily the reliability. I think it is that the technology changes so quickly, and that it outmodes itself, after a certain amount of time. I don't know what that window is, but then, I mean, I could foresee that being a problem. Just the technology gets surpassed, and then it's kind of like your iPhone. iPhone 4 was awesome when you had an iPhone 4. Right now, compared to the iPhone X10, whatever it is, it's not exactly the same thing. So I think that that is a bigger concern rather than it being chintzy or, subpar in some way. I don't know.
See, I kind of agree with that. I also agree that it's overused, though. Just so I can flip flop on this issue all over the place.
Take a stand,
Anyway, so in a lot of ways, the term industrial is used as an adjective to describe the equipment rather than describe the type of audience the equipment is intended for. So you can look up and down the line of hobby grade printers, and many, if not every single one of them, says industrial somewhere. Pro, industrial, pro, robust might be another one, but 9 out of 10 times it says industrial, professional 3D printer.
Yeah. So he's, if Todd's gripe is that, then he's talking to the right audience at least, because it's the Stratuses of the world, the big manufacturers of the world who use these terms to describe their products.
Right. And the point is, it's overused and it confuses people who are brand new to it because they don't know the difference between a Maker Gear printer that is quote unquote industrial and a Stratasys printer that is quote unquote industrial, or a 5-axis Mazak mill that's quote unquote industrial.
Those are not remotely the same things.
Yeah, it's actually all three of them are very, very different.
So I guess here's one question, I guess to counter my own point a little bit. So if we don't think that all of our machines are industrial to the point where they'll last for 50 years, would you buy one still?
Yeah. Because going into the iPhone 4 factor, how long should equipment last to be considered industrial? How long should a car last to be considered industrial?
I think people are changing their expectation of that.
Yeah, I guess the argument we have with people sometimes is, okay, we often have to overcome something better is always going to come out. We always say, so you're just not going to have the technology at all now? You're just going to ignore it now and wait 10 more years before you get it? It's like, that's kind of the funny argument. It's like, yeah, we all know that better things will come out, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to try and bring in the best of the best right now.
I mean, I look at it and say, what's the ROI? What's the ROI on the machine? When do I get my payback? And then when am I in the black from there? And then how much life can I get out of the machine in value? And that's really where the value is built into.
That's where it should matter. I don't think it's fair to say, oh, I have a lathe that was built in 1954 and it's still a lathe, it's still working. That's not a fair comparison.
Doesn't have West Germany stamped on the side of it. And
it's not something like that.
I think we have higher standards of engineering now where we can look at a piece of equipment or a tool and say, I want this tool to last at least 10 years. We expect the people that we sell it to will pay it back in 18 months, and then they're going to have, 9.5 years, maybe 8.5 years.
Maybe 7 years from now, a better fit technology comes out.
Yeah.
But they still got the ROI of the first 7 years.
Exactly. And then, hypothetically, you buy it, you pay it off, or it pays for itself pretty quickly, and then you start making money with it. Do you just stop buying newer or better equipment when it comes out, and you just say, well, I was gonna say hitched my wagon to this horse, but I hate
you don't want to use that expression.
I hate that that's the thought that came to my head. I hitched my horse to this wagon, or my wagon to this horse, and I'm just gonna ride it out from here. Not gonna try to improve my processor technology from here on out.
So I think
who would do that?
But so we're also talking about the role that the 3D printer will play in industry, right? So, I mean, industrial, if you're Nabisco and you're making Oreos, to use my analogy from today.
You really like cookies.
I really am in like a cookie mood today. If you're Nabisco and you have a line of cookies and you're not, the role that a 3D printer could play in your manufacturing process is different than in your prototyping lab. That is different than in a tool room. That is different than. So I don't think you can really use one noun and cast a wide paint with a wide brush. Can we steal any more? Like,
How many cliches can we talk about in this
we could probably
podcast?
stuff in a few more.
We probably
Okay.
We're about to. We have another topic that'll get a little dicey later, but yeah,
Oh, no.
include some more cliches in that one. But anyway, nonetheless.
I feel like
So,
we've talked about time criminals.
Industrial is an overused term. Did he have any suggestions for how people can change the dialogue, or was it more just pointing out the problems?
Nope.
No, all right, well,
Mostly just pointing at the problem.
Yeah.
It was more like 3 trends and a rant
leaving
than
you
it was
with
4 trends.
leaving you with
in all honesty.
here's my
But-
parting thoughts. Go and take this back
Yeah.
and brainstorm
Yeah.
how you
I,
can address
I
it.
liked it. I appreciate it because it did get me to think about it.
It was something that needed to be said.
Yeah.
Fair point. I mean, if it's in casual conversation and people are talking about it, then it's probably everywhere.
Yeah. So I guess maybe it was more of a buyer beware. And so when you're looking at all these booths and every single person's banner says industrial on it, ask them, how did you measure that?
Right.
Why do you consider it industrial?
Yeah, I was gonna say,
So
that's
that
a
they
better
can
question,
point out like the quality of the components, maybe they overbuilt it 400 times, whatever, but how they measure that and why they consider themselves industrial. That kind of was the point of his whole talk, essentially, was that you're going to have a lot
Challenge.
thrown at you over the next 3-4 days in terms of technology and what it does and what it doesn't do, and what you should or shouldn't buy or use. And just to, I think it was make your own reality or something.
Yeah,
I
that
don't
was
know.
his thing.
Essentially, don't be an idiot and get information from multiple sources and ask questions and seek to understand.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Was there anything else that you guys wanted to cover from AMUG? Anything else that you were particularly excited about or interested in, or
I have
anything you
another
wanted to
point.
share with anyone?
I have another point from AMUG. What was the other one you had? I forget.
The materials one?
Materials. And then we have to talk about the steak at some point.
That's what I'm excited to talk about.
Let him talk about
Let's
steak.
talk about this. Talk about the steak.
go with your
we'll
steak.
loop back to AMUG and then we'll.
Okay, so
call it
I
a
saw
day.
this on Facebook. I saw this on Facebook a couple of weeks ago, and then Kevin was talking about it this morning. I think it is on the official agenda for today. But
Okay.
from what I understand, it's a 3D printer that takes a soy-based, like bean paste, basically.
Puree kind of
Like a
thing.
bean paste and extrudes it and makes a 3D prints a vegan steak. And a lot of people shared that. I know a lot of vegan people who were all, I'll try a vegan steak. Sounds absolutely abysmal. What do you guys think? All right, so I think the reason why it caught people's attention and became kind of a lightning rod moment was because it was thrown out under the guise of, solving world hunger with 3D printed food.
I don't know about world hunger.
Well, I think that was the general thought was, here's an application to artificially manufacture food. We don't need to rely on raising a cow or anything like that. We
Does
can
the
get
shape
protein
of the
in other
food
ways.
affect the fact that it's food?
Yes,
I
it does.
don't know
I'm
the
pretty
answer.
sure.
Yeah, that's what it looked like. It looked like they were mashing bean paste
Yeah.
into a tube so you could use it as filament. And
Yeah.
then calling it
That's
steak,
kinda
which
what it
is also a
was.
sin.
Yeah, I would be more.
Bean paste patty maybe
have
would be
a
a
bone to
bit
pick.
more accurate.
with calling it a steak.
Yeah, I don't know exactly where they were going with that one. The end world hunger, sure, whatever you want to do.
So,
go ahead.
I mean, it does bring up a valid question. If you had a 3D printer and you were, somebody who lived off the grid and did these kind of things, could you presumably print all of your meals?
Again, why would it matter if it was?
Could you
printed?
feed a potato and then make mashed potato like designs?
That could be possible,
Sure, but
actually. I
why-
think that's a great idea. That would be really fun.
Pancakes? Like, the options are endless.
Pancake
How is
bots
this-
exist.
How is this?
Pancake bots do exist.
How is this helping you? What problem is it solving?
I mean, for vegan people, it's a way to eat, meat food with a knife.
Okay.
Okay, so the only
That's all I got, I guess.
the only like real application I've seen in 3D printing food, other than like decorative purposes,
Yeah.
is I told you I saw a senior citizen home that started to print like pureed food in the shape of what it kind of originally was, that you weren't always eating a
Oh,
bowl
yeah.
of paste, basically.
Yeah.
So if you
Or
had
out of a tube or
yeah.
something like
Yeah.
that.
It looks
the nutritional
roughly-
supplements they have in places
obviously
like
it's
that.
still
yeah.
soft, it's still pureed, but it looks more like what they're used to.
Yeah.
So more of kind of a mental thing for elderly.
Okay.
So that's how we should treat our vegans.
It's just feed them mush.
You'd be fine if you did it.
Oh,
If they want to change the shape of their food, go ahead. But I don't really see how that solves a end world hunger problem.
Okay, here's my take on it. I don't think it's a solve world hunger problem, but I do think it's an environmental problem. So here's the deal.
Okay.
It takes a lot of resources to raise beef.
Absolutely.
It takes a lot of resources. Cows emit a lot of methane, which is an awful greenhouse gas compared to CO2. It's, I don't know, 3-5 times worse.
Way worse, yeah.
And so beef and all of the resources that go into it and just raising them has a severe impact on the environment. Beans have a strong, and mushrooms also have a strong umami flavor, which can help to mimic beef. The reason people want to 3D
You
print
know a
it.
lot about this, Adam. I'm surprised.
I've read too
Continue.
much. I've read too much. My older brother became a vegetarian a year ago, so I've learned a lot about this without citing any sources. This is just off the top of my head. Anyway, so people want to 3D print it because of how the printer lays down the paste to mimic the striations within meat tissue. And you can, you get ground beef or you get like a nice steak, a real steak, and it has like the marbling from the fat in it. And so you can kind of mimic that effect and that mouthfeel by using vegetable-based paste extrusion. And you can layer that with other vegetable fats to make a vegetarian, high protein, because beans and mushrooms, patty-like thing that feels kind of like meat in your mouth.
You can also make it bleed.
You can, yes, with beets.
No, not even with beets. So I was actually listening to a story the other day where they were reviewing plant-based like hamburgers, like
they call it the Impossible Burger.
The Impossible Burgers, but they don't use beet juice. The Impossible Burger did. The other one that they tested did not.
Radishes.
No,
Okay.
it was hema.
What is that?
Hema is in the word hemoglobin, which is what makes your blood red and holds the iron in your blood.
Oh.
So hema exists in some plants, not hemoglobin, but hema. And if you extract that and inject it into the artificial, it will sort of taste kind of like metallic, like iron, like blood, and it will look bloody.
I want to ask you a question, though.
Creepy.
What is better for the environment? The cows with the methane, or constantly running 3D printers all day and using electricity to print it into meat that's
3D
unnecessarily...
3D printers actually don't, at least the small scale ones that were used in this lab study printing a steak, they don't use that much electricity. They probably consume 12 volts, 5 watts total.
If you're using enough to replace cows,
You can also run them from renewable resources. You can't run a cow entirely from renewable resources.
I will just say, though, that cricket meal is, by weight, much higher in protein,
It is.
much less damaging to the environment, but nobody wants to eat crickets.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're
Cricket burger, sir?
if you're purely looking at a nutrition and environmental impact, printing fake steak from cricket meal and beans is probably more environmentally stable, but hopefully it's a long time before
We're forced into that.
Before we are forced into
I have a feeling society will be forced into that at some point. I mean,
At some
I think
point.
that's the only time
Hopefully not in my lifetime.
That's the only time we'd adapt it is if we were forced into it. I don't see people voluntarily leaping for that.
My final conclusion is that's cool. I'll just have my burger now.
Yeah, it's kind of neat.
You guys have fun with that.
It's kind of neat. It blew up online, but
It was interesting for a little while, but I think you're right. Once sort of people realized, like, and then what? Okay. It was more like, all right, am I really going to do this?
yeah.
Okay.
So what did you want to talk about materials-wise? I know that we diverted a little bit to talk about the fake meat. But
Strong transition from material being beans to
Yeah.
material being
what other
real
kinds of materials?
real
If I'm not using
thermoplastics.
legumes, Ken, talk to me about different material options.
Sure. So actually, one of the very last things we did when we were at AMUG was go to a panel on. It was a panel of material suppliers. So companies like BASF, DuPont, Henkel, other brand names. And it was very popular. They had standing room only. There wasn't a seat left. And there was this weird dynamic in the room, and thankfully we were not a part of, but weird dynamic between the manufacturers and what they kind of thought we should do moving forward. The OEMs or the machine producers and what they thought people wanted moving forward. And a couple of users, I think Ford and Wilson, the athletic company, were the two that stood up and talked. And what they said they wanted. And it was this weird tension where not everybody seemed to be on the same page.
Yeah.
So I guess my thing was, if you remember kind of the arguments, who do you think is correct?
A lot of the conversation was between those parties, but it seemed like the point of contention was, should materials for 3D printers...
So you have material end user, material supplier, and material...
Machine
manufacturer utilization.
Yes.
So you had 3 different representatives.
You have all those people in the same room.
Okay, all right. And then they all had divergent opinions on the future
on this
of
topic.
material.
On this topic.
Yes, and specifically around materials, and specifically around whether materials should be open on machines or closed.
Oh.
Who should restrict that access? And essentially, who should restrict access? Who should be creating new materials? Who should be distributing new materials, etc. Everything around
Standard
materials.
So the manufacturer is upholding standardizations
Yes.
and expectations of quality based on
Yes.
what they impose, and the end user is probably saying, "Give me more flexibility."
Correct me if I'm wrong, but this is kind of the views I felt. The material suppliers said everything should be open.
so that they can sell to absolutely everybody, right?
The machine manufacturers were pretty split. You had the Straticises of the room saying, we ensure quality by limiting what goes into our machines, making sure you don't put in bad material in our machines. And other OEMs were saying, well, our customers want to use all these different materials, we'll just give them everything. And then we finally had the actual users, those users that were represented, that said, I just want it to work. Which was basically the theme I got.
Yeah.
Was I just need to hit go and I need it to work. You guys have fun, I just want my thing to work.
Yeah, but if it works and it doesn't hold up as well as the ASA that you got off of the other machine, you're going to have inconsistencies in your production process now.
Yeah.
I can see where Stratasys comes from with upholding those standards, because your interest is in the end part, and it's their interest to make sure that the end part is the highest quality, and if they control that whole process, then they are better able to manage that.
Right.
I
However,
get it.
on the other side of that, if anyone from Stratasys is watching, don't come for me. But someone made a point where it was, if you buy an injection molding machine, the person who makes the injection molding machine doesn't say you can only buy material from us. If you buy a CNC machine, you can put whatever you want in there. And so it's almost like a freedom question at that point. And who has the right to tell me to do what I can do with my equipment?
But if I'm Stratasys and you're not using the right material and the head breaks as a result of the bogus material,
Right.
I can say it's a tough
It's a different world. It's almost like in 3D printing, the material matters much more than it matters in some of these other processes. And so, I don't know,
Who does it matter more
to
to?
get quality.
Right, yeah. Is Ford super concerned? Are they saying I need consistency in the end product to the point where I need to be able
Yeah,
to...
they want it all.
Yeah, that's the one. The end users are a little bit conflicted in their own statement, because we just want it to work, but we also want every material that we want.
Right.
And I also want it to be cheaper and faster.
Right. Give us the world. We'll talk later.
I think when you look at Stratasys specifically on the FDM side, from what I see, is Stratasys says, here's a machine, this is what this machine is capable of, it will work if you're looking for this. And when you hit go, you will get what you want. Where other machines kind of give you the open platform of, okay, I don't know exactly what I need, or I don't know what material to even
Mac
use.
versus PC, damn it.
In a lot of ways.
Yeah.
In a lot
It's
of
the same
ways.
thing. It's just history repeating itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, different industries.
It was an interesting argument. I mean, obviously we represent Stratasys, so we're on one side of the table, but it was just interesting to listen to.
I can see both sides of that, because you brought in things that you've printed at home, and I'm like, oh, that looks great. I had no objection to the quality of the way that looks. So I can see both sides of that for sure.
I've put a few hours into my machine to make it do that.
Yeah, well,
And also,
not everybody knows as much as you do, Kevin.
no offense, Kevin, but you have to have a bit of an educated eye to a lot of times be able to tell the
Oh yeah.
difference.
Oh, I have no idea. It was
Yeah.
different. Yeah. Very good point.
Versus it took me.
That's a great diplomatic way to put that too, without calling me
I
stupid.
didn't want to insult you.
And that's one thing in our industry we face is education. Is
Oh yeah.
the number of people that just don't know how 3D printers work. In CNCs and injection molds, they have professionals that know how those systems work, or you could hire someone that knows how it works inside and out.
Yes.
There's not as many of those people in the
There's no
additive
30-year guy
manufacturing.
who's been 3D printing for 30 years.
It
and
hasn't
he's
been
everything he needs to know.
And
that long.
that is exactly my next topic, which I think is our last topic, and that is the one thing that the 3D printing industry needs more than anything else. Standards
Yeah.
was a constant point of conversation. Is if you are making machine parts, you can spec out on your drawing, I need this tolerance, I need this ISO standard, I need this RA value surface finish, and everyone has this common language to communicate about these things, and it just doesn't exist for 3D printing. And it's so difficult because 3D printing encompasses a lot of different technologies, a lot of different manufacturers, a lot of different material suppliers, where it's a difficult challenge to get there. And I don't know how to get there faster other than just waiting for ASTM and ISO to get there.
I was going to say, is there room for a consortium and ISO
They're
type
working on
of
it.
standardization format to be? Okay. So who is they?
They being ASTM, ISO, and UL.
Okay.
You know, the big...
United Launch.
Yeah.
Or is it? No, it's
I don't know what UL
Laboratories.
stands for.
United Laboratories, I believe. I think it's United Laboratories.
Whoever it is.
I'm thinking United Launch Lines, which is a completely different company.
Much
I think it's
different.
United Laboratories.
Yeah. So the big certification governing bodies are all working on it.
Yeah.
But as of today, it's a big roadblock to using it for end-use part
So in the
applications.
same conversation, we've talked about the myriad of different types of technology, the different types of material, and now how do you standardize all that?
Yeah.
Really, because I mean, we've just run the gamut of all the different variables and all the advancements.
How is your machine 1, how does it perform different than machine 2? And how does the nylon I put in that machine perform differently than the nylon I put in that machine?
Yeah.
Or the nylon I put in that machine or
And
that
then
machine? It's just
throw in metal, and then throw in
every other material
Yeah.
and every brand of machine.
ceramic, then throw in literally, yeah.
And
That's
the biggest question, how do you know for sure that that steak is going to be food safe? Why aren't more people not talking about that? Anyway,
Okay, that's a good point,
I think I'm funny. Ignore me. But the point is, 3D printing doesn't have, I guess, the rich history when you compare it to other machining methods. You know, subtractive or molding or anything. It's been around for over 100 years.
Yeah.
So we're still kind of in the wild west
You've got
of
100 years of trial and error.
Yes, and shop 1 communicating to shop 2, hey, this is the standard, this is the line in the sand.
Right. This is our line in the sand because this is the standard we can hold. So
Yes.
therefore, we're going to hold you to that. And
Exactly. So that's why sometimes when you buy nylon from 3 different suppliers, it's all very, very different at the polymer level.
did they address any of that at AMUG?
A little bit in the materials panel that we were in.
But there wasn't, a large effort, a big breakout of here's how we're standardizing
Not
everything.
between the suppliers, there's not.
Yeah.
There was a talk last year that I went to on standards. If there was one this year, I intentionally didn't go because it was a very dry topic. But it is very important nonetheless.
You want to spend a Tuesday afternoon for 2 hours.
Yeah, it was more like a collective demand for more standardization across manufacturers and materials and processes than it was an update on where we're at with that.
I'm willing to bet you that there are a handful of factors that will help to start to push that in that direction. Major manufacturers saying, here's our standard.
Yes.
And if the Stratuses of the world came out and said, here is what we're going to hold ourselves to, then you could almost kind of set the bar from there and then let the rest of the industry shape the conversation around what you've already said. This is where we stand.
Yeah.
I think aerospace has pushed us to start doing that. You start seeing certified grade materials, lot traceable materials. I think more industries will force us to do that if we want to be, like we say, production ready. Like right now, we don't have 3D printed parts on cars, not mass produced cars. We're getting to planes, but we don't produce planes at the scale we produce cars.
Thank God.
Yes. Yes. So I think in time, when the industry starts forcing it on us, it'll start to really get moving. Until then, it's kind of like it's something we don't want, and we'll keep moving towards it slowly.
Right, so Ultim came out as a result of trying to meet the aerospace grade standards, right?
Certified Ultim.
So that's a very logical point. Cool. Anything else you guys want to cover?
I don't think so.
What did you do in Chicago
I feel like
that
we've
was
talked a
fun?
lot.
He got
Outside of
pizza.
him, what was one thing you did in Chicago that was I love Chicago?
I'll let you take the food. And then they actually part of the conference they took us to the Chicago Museum of Science. It was like one of the
Oh, it's huge.
Yeah.
It's huge.
really cool. A lot of really cool things. A lot of interactive.
What was your favorite thing at the museum?
I like the sub.
The submarine. Yeah, they had a whole
They had an
submarine.
entire World War II Nazi submarine inside.
That's
that you
cool.
could,
Yeah.
they had a bunch of stuff you could learn about, and obviously you could walk through it too.
Yeah.
My favorite thing was they had a giant Tesla coil hanging from the ceiling that
Yeah.
shot lightning every 30 minutes.
Yeah.
That was super cool.
And then, what did you do? You had to do in Chicago.
I've never been to Chicago, and I love pizza. If anyone from Giordano's is watching,
You just said 3D printing pizza.
Really, anybody in the Syracuse area who wants to give us pizza, we're down for that too.
yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys for watching our Additive Manufacturing podcast. Be sure to check out future episodes, past episodes, like, subscribe, enjoy our page, comment. We'll get back to you. Thank you for watching the show. Then we'll rip my earplugs out.